The Manx Telecom Parish Walk for 2023 takes place on Saturday the 24th of June. And maybe you're a seasoned parish walker, or maybe you're a first-timer. Well, if you want any hints, advice, tips about how to best prepare for the walk, Kim Quine has been speaking to Manx Telecom race director Ray Cox, four-time winner of the Parish Walk, Jock Waddington, and race secretary Elizabeth Corrin, who give you their top tips to prepare for the 2023 Manx Telecom Parish Walk.
Hi, I'm Jock Waddington. I'm the Parish Walk media manager. I've finished the Parish Walk 10 times and I've won it 4 times.
To start with, tell us what differentiates race walking from normal walking or running, for example.
Okay, so in a running event, anybody can just virtually rock up and just get to the finish line with any method that they can, and it wouldn't be deemed as being unfair to other people in the same race. However, walking events are governed by World Athletics, which used to be the IAAF, and they have rules for walking events, and as race walk organisers we adhere to those rules. There are 2 essential rules for race walking, one of which we have to stick with, the other one we let slip. So essentially an athlete has to have 1 foot on the ground at all times. Otherwise, if both feet are off the ground, you're essentially running. So that is the rule that we enforce during our race.
So speaking of those rules, with a race over such a long period of both time and distance, how do you make sure that those rules are enforced throughout?
Okay, we have quite a number of judges who are out on the course all day from the very beginning, and they will move along with the race. So there'll be judges who are watching the start, the head of the race, if you like, and then other judges further back towards the middle. So everybody gets a fair judge, if you like, as the race progresses and as the day goes on.
What kind of people do you get who judge whether the rules are being adhered to?
People from the walking community, ex-racers or people who are still racing. The chief judge of the Parish Walk for the last few years, quite a few years now, is Steve Taylor, who's an international race walking judge. He has judged at the European Athletics, the World Athletics, and also the Olympic Games. So he knows what he's doing.
So do you have any top tips for recovering in the hours and days after the Parish Walk? Is there anything, for example, that you can do immediately after you finish to help with the sore feet and muscles?
Well, ideally what you should do probably is jump into a cold bath or if the tide is in, walk into the sea, but it's the last thing, to be honest, that's on your mind when you cross that finish line or you get to the end. But a cold bath would do you the world of good. Obviously put your legs up and just take it easy for a day, the following day, and then, but even if you have sore feet, sore legs, sore limbs, the day or so afterwards, after the event, is just to get out and have a little pot around the block, if you like, take the dog out for a walk, just to get the legs moving again, because if they seize up, they'll take a while to get going again.
So the dreaded blisters, pop them or leave them?
Well, it's usually a topic of debate, this one, but I'm fully in the pop them camp, as it were, because they are very, very uncomfortable, and when they do pop, or you pop them yourselves, they are very, very painful, but that pain dissipates in about 5 or 6 minutes, 10 minutes, and then you forget all about them then until you take your socks off at the end of the game. But definitely pop them.
And finally, how does it feel when you cross that finish line?
There's no better feeling, because no matter how many times you've tried to get round the Parish Walk, your first finish is always the best, regardless of how many times you finish it. But a lot of people try again, and eventually get round, and just seeing the faces cross the line, you can tell how much it means to them. It is a great feeling when you turn the corner at Port Jack and you start heading down towards the prom and the last mile or so. That mile doesn't get any shorter, but it's a fantastic feeling.
Hi, I'm Raymond Cox and I'm the Manx Telecom Parish Walk race director. I took part in the Parish Walk once and finished once in 1994, and I've been the race director for 28 years since.
So we all know the Parish Walk can take up to 24 hours.
Hang on, second, go.
So as we know, the Parish Walk can take up to 24 hours. The burning question though, where does one go to the toilet during a 24-hour race? And are there any strategic places that you'd aim for?
Well, like all big events, you got to plan well in advance, and going before you go makes sense. We have toilets starting at the NSC, and then we have them strategically placed, lots and lots up as far as Peel, and then less so from Peel onwards, where the numbers start to drop off. But the most important thing to know is that they're all listed on the website, in the programme, in our support app. So support crew know where to go as well. So there are lots of options for you to find out.
So most of us aren't really used to staying awake for up to 24 hours at a time, so let alone do any physical exercise for that period of time as well. So what are your top tips for keeping fatigue at bay and keep your motivation going? And do you find that there's certain points in the race that walkers say are particularly difficult?
Well, the Parish Walk is a mental test of stamina as well as a physical one, and no question that those people who are mentally strong, maybe perhaps even refer to them as bloody minded, very stubborn, that's the trait of a Parish Walk finisher. They come in all shapes and sizes, different athletic abilities, but they all have that trait, a degree of determinedness and doggedness. With respect to the toughest part of the course mentally, no doubt between Derby and Bride, it's becoming dark, you're out over 50 miles, 60 miles, you're coming along very narrow country roads with very high hedges, and every time you turn you think you're going to come to Bride Church, but of course you don't. So that's the part you can see some of the competitors wilting.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Corrin. I'm race secretary, which I have been for the past 30 years. I've won the ladies' race to Peel 3 times, and I finished the Parish Walk in 2006.
So how, in a race like the Parish Walk, do you deal with chafing, and is there any particular area that walkers should be mindful of?
Well, chafing's when the skin rubs together, so to prevent that, you can, in the places you get it, first of all, is like under the armpits, under the breast, the nipples, the groin, and to prevent that is to use a petroleum gel, like Vaseline or something like that. But for the nipples, especially on men, is to put a plaster on each nipple, and that would stop the chafing. Don't wear loose clothing. Forget about cotton, because that will cause more, especially if it's wet. So good fitting clothing that you've already tried out before race day, so never wear any brand new clothing on race day. And for women, sports bras, to make sure that it's not too snug, because again, over the long time out, that will start to rub round, and there's nothing worse than getting in a shower or a bath at the end of the race when you've got that fresh chaffing on there. It's very painful. So yeah, it's just precaution is better than not.
Are some socks superior to others?
Socks is a very personal thing, and I would advise people while they're training to try out their socks, various types. Some people like the 1,000-mile ones, some people like the twin skin, others just prefer ordinary sports socks. Personally, I don't like the 1,000 miles because I got blisters with those. So really, it's again, in your training, try out, and then when you find what's comfortable, stick to that one.
So shoes are obviously quite important for something like the Parish Walk, but are there any tips to help with your shoes? For example, you hear about people putting newspaper in them to soften them up. Would you recommend anything like that?
I've never done that personally, but I would recommend that they have a light sort of flexible shoe so they can get the heel to toe roll when they're walking. If it's too heavy, then that won't be comfortable, I wouldn't think. A low heel, lightweight, like racers, running flat racers or something like that are very good for walking. I wouldn't, they might put the newspaper in before, but you want a good fitting shoe that's not tight, because if you're walking for 16 to 24 hours, your feet will swell, so you want room for that to happen.
So when we say insect repellent, you're probably thinking of somewhere a little bit more tropical than the Isle of Man, but is it something that is recommended on Parish Walk Day?
It could be, because at night you'll get the midges coming out, and especially if you're anywhere near water. So, yeah, if you're affected by anything like that, then I would probably recommend that.
You obviously can't completely plan for the weather, especially on the Isle of Man, but if a day was particularly hot or particularly rainy, how would that affect walkers and their strategy?
Well, some people prefer the rain, some people prefer it to be hot. But if it's hot, make sure you're taking plenty of fluids on board, because you're going to sweat that out. Electrolytes are probably good, because you'll sweat the natural salts out of the body, so therefore you have to replenish them back in. Rain, well, if it's very hot and sunny, you want to make sure you've got plenty of sun cream on. Wet, make sure you've got the right clothing, so lightweight, not loads and loads of layers, and thick clothing. So you want lightweight clothing and a good waterproof jacket.
So we hear about people who are running marathons, carb loading in the meals the day before. Is that something that you would recommend for people who are taking part in the Parish Walk?
Well, physiologists tell us that carb loading is a little bit of a myth, that you cannot actually store enough glycogen in your liver and muscles to have enough energy for certainly for a 24-hour test such as the Parish Walk. So bottom line is, eat little and often, eat plenty, well in advance before you feel fatigued. Yes, we sort of recommend those sort of foodstuffs that maybe you shouldn't eat on other days. In other words, readily available carbohydrate, the sugary type things. Jelly babies are always a big favourite at the feed stations. But if you ask the different parish walkers, the finishers, the experienced walkers, what their diets are, it will be very, very variable, because trying to digest food later on in the race is a real problem. People go for the soup, some people go for Christmas cake. It's very variable. But I think the message is that whatever you're going to use on race day, try it out well in advance and know it suits you.
So we all know most important meal of the day, but what would you recommend as a breakfast on Parish Walk morning?
Well, perhaps not what I did. I had a full English breakfast on the morning of my Parish Walk. But I think we're looking at, again, foodstuffs that you've used before, eaten before. And we all do our long training stints and whatever. So whatever you've eaten prior to your long training stints, that's your breakfast. Again, we're looking at the readily available energies, the mueslis, the slow release as well. That's the sort of stuff. And most importantly, fluids. So drinking plenty before the race, not necessarily waiting till you feel thirsty. So plenty of fluids prior to the race is recommended.
And on that, are there certain types of drink that you think are better than others?
Well, again, I come back to what suits the individual. Electrolyte drinks, high energy drinks are very popular, but they don't suit every athlete's tummy. So therefore, if you are going to try out using high energy gels and whatever, you've got to have them tried out well in advance during your long walks and training. Don't take something new out on Parish Walk Day. And there's nothing wrong with plain water, and we provide plenty of that in our feed stations.